Welcome back. Let's get started using our new knowledge about variables in our project. So here we have our game, guess the number. Now let's go over to our game logic script in Visual Studio and actually create our first variables. Okay, therefore, here at the top, I'm going to create a new variable. And I'm going to use the structure that we used before, using the int, then and giving it a name. So random num. Okay, so then after that, I can use a semicolon. So what we are doing here is we are declaring a variable. This by itself is fine. So this is how you can declare a variable. As you can see, we are not giving it a number. So we're not giving it a value, which means we're not initializing it. If we want to initialize it, we need to use the equal sign and then add the value that we want to assign to it. So let's say we wanted to assign 10 to it, we can do it this way. So now we're declaring a variable and initializing it. Now this variable will be totally fine and we can now use it throughout our class because we created it outside of any method. We're going to see what scope is later on. For now, we're just going to take it as what it is. Declare it at the top of your class. So just once your class game logic has started. So here just after this opening bracket, create a new line and add your new variable. Now, what you can also do is, or what you should do actually, is you should add the private keyword here. What this private keyword will do is it will make sure that this integer variable will only be usable throughout our script. So it will only be usable inside of this file. And if we now have other files, we will not be able to access this random number and change it. That's why we can add this access modifier private. Now what we can do is we can also only declare it here or just declare it in here, the variable random num, and actually initialize it inside of our start method, which is usually a good way where you can then just define what value you want to assign to a variable. So once the game logic script or the game object that holds this game logic script will be loaded into the game. So let's do that. Let's use this random num and you can already see the IDE. So in this case, Visual Studio is offering me the random num variable name that we just created. So it's a field int game logic random num. Okay, so let's use that. And now let's assign a value to it. So with this equal sign, we are assigning a variable. So we are initializing the variable, but we're also assigning a value to that variable. Okay, so let's take 10, for example. After that, we need to use the semicolon in order to finish this line and finish this statement. For now, let's actually test something. So we have this debug log on button click method that we created earlier. And now we will use this debug log in order to log our random number. Okay, so let's use debug.log and then use our random number in here, like so. So you can see we can just add the random number here, but this will just display the numbers. It will just say 10. So we can also say something like the random number is, and then what the actual random number is with a plus sign here. So here we're using something called concatenation. So basically what we're doing is we are combining the string with this random number. Now the cool thing is this log can handle this. Usually you cannot add two variables together that are of different types because this here is a string and this here is of type integer. If you recall, we used the integer type, which is a whole number, and you cannot add a whole number to a text, but that's not what's happening here. So we're not adding 10 to this string here, but what we're doing is we're displaying this string, so this text, with the 10 as a text as well. That's what this debug log can do for us. So let's actually test this and see if once we click on the button, it will actually say the random number is and then 10, for example. So now let's go ahead and save our file and go back to Unity. Now once in Unity, let's open the console and start our game. And then once the game is loaded, press the button. So you can see who clicked me is displayed. This is the first debug statement that we used. And then we have this other one which says the random number is 10. So let me click on it again and you can see it's displayed once again. So this way we can now know which variable we have assigned in code, and we could use this even if we have created a random number, which we will do later on, which will then be actually a real random number, because right now it's really just a hard-coded 10 that we have assigned as the value in our script. Okay, so to quickly recap, what we have done is we have created a variable of type integer, which we gave the name random num. Then we saw how we can assign a value to it, either directly when declaring it or at a later point in time. So here in our case, once the game is started and our game logic script comes into play and into existence, then we assign the value to our random num. We also saw that we can use this private keyword, which then makes sure that our variable will be only usable throughout our game logic script. We can, however, also use no keyword at all, like so, or we can even use something called public int. And by the way, let's actually quickly look at what this would do for us. So let's go back to Unity after we have saved this. So make the change, go back to Unity, and then go over to your game logic. And what you will find is that now your game logic here in the script area also has this random num available to it. If it was private, that wouldn't be the case. But now, because we made it public, we can actually see it from here. So let me run the game once again and then press the button. And by the way, you can see it populated it with 10 here. So now the random number is 10. So if we change that now, let's say we make it 50 and we click the button once again, you can see the random number is now 50. And that is the cool thing that Unity allows us. It basically allows us to manipulate the variables in our script directly from the Unity inspector, which is very powerful and super useful. And that's something that we're going to use even more in the next few videos. But for now, I think that's enough of an introduction to at least the basic int type of variables. We're going to see different types of variables as we go, and then we're going to cover them in more detail once we use them. All right, so that's it for this video. See you in the next one.